all of these plugins here. And that is it for the individual mixer channel here. As well is to, let's say I select one of these mixer channels here. I can select in the channel rack here, I can select, let's say, all of the drums here. And I'll go to the mixer here and just right click and channel routing, route selected channels starting from this track. So now you can see all of these selected instruments here, selected tracks in the channel rack are routed to the mixer. So now you can see, instead of creating or assigning all of these individual tracks to a separate mixer track, then renaming them, color them, and so on and so forth. So now all of this is done automatically, and by choosing to route these tracks to the mixer. So now they are renamed and colored and everything like that. So that is very nice to use, and you will see all of these here. So let's say that I want to put on a reverb on a snare, for instance. So now I have the slots here on the left-hand side. So I have the snare mixer channel selected, and I can go to, let's say, here I want a reverb. So let's go to the Fruity Reverb 2 here. You can see I have a reverb on just the snare here. A lot of different options in the mixer here. You can right click here in the mixer and see a lot of different things you can do. Same thing goes here with the routing of the signal. So let's say that we now have all of our instruments here. You can see that these instruments are routed to this instrument. So let's get rid of that. Now you can see that, let's say that let's get rid of all of these here, like that. All right, so now you can see that this track goes through a cable that is kind of invisible here and goes to this track. So what that means is that the sound that comes through this track goes through the master, right? So then we have the same thing there, same thing there, and same thing there. So what you can do here is to route. Let's say I want to route all of the drum signal here. Let's say that I want all of these, let's say just the drum section here. I want all of the drum sounds to be routed through insert 1, which will make our drum bus here. I can do that by just selecting them as I did before with the control or command click and just dragging them over like that. And then I can just right click on our track that we want it to be routed to and just press on route to this track only. And now you can see that the signal is routed through here. So then if you go to the insert, you can see that the insert itself is routed to the master. So the signal will now travel, all of these 4 mixer channel signal will travel through to this insert 1, and then the signal will travel through the insert 1's plugins, if you have any, and then to the master. So it will actually go, instead of going through the master immediately, it will go through the insert 1 first, and that will make us a drum bus here. Separate these different mixer channels. So you can see we have drums here, then we have some classic acoustic instrument, and we have a piano. So it may be nice to just separate things here. So I can just go and press and create a separator between these tracks. Then we can create a separator between this track, like that. So now you can see we have our drum sections here. So these are kind of separated between all of these other mixer channels here. So that is a very basic overview of the mixer. You can see I just tried out the volume here, enabled and disabled the track. I panned it a bit. I create a stereo width here. I can also set the sound to be switched a bit in time with milliseconds, samples or beats. Yeah, and you can just create stereo width here as well, and you can enable and disable plugins if you have any on, like on this track. So you can do that by just clicking and clicking it again to enable and disable the plugins. To show you here in the mixer is that you can actually change the volume meter here to, instead of a dB meter, you can have it set to a waveform meter. You can do it by going to view here and switch it to waveforms. So now if I play here, you can see that all of these volume meters will show up as waveform meters. That is very handy to use if you want to see how big of a signal you have and where the signal is and all of the other stuff. That is very handy with waveforms. Alright guys, so that is it for the mixer, and I think you got a nice overview of the mixer here in FL Studio, and I'll see you in the next lecture.